where were we? So my last live stream was rudely interrupted. It cut off. So I'm just going to basically kind of pick up where I left off. But man, I've got a lot to say. Hi, Pam. So I've got quite a few notes. I don't know where this is going to take us. Oh, damn, I need my pen too. Hang on, where's my pen? Hi from Germany, neat. Oh, let me see. We're going to see how much I can plow through. This might be a long one. I know I always say that I'm going to come back on, and sometimes things just happen. It interrupts me. I may have to go put these dogs away. I'm prepared as best I can. So we'll see. And then sometimes, you know, if you've watched any of these things before, I get on and I could plan and plan and plan, but sometimes the energy just opens in and I have almost nothing to do with it. I just step out of the way and see what comes through. At any rate, there are so many developments. We're at this bizarre, is it bizarre? Well, it's unprecedented anyway. We're at this juncture of realms. Oh, here we go. Whatever. We'll see how long this stream lasts. I'm just going to set the intention that it's going to carry through, and everyone's going to hear everything that they need to hear. So I'm calling on all of the benevolence of the universe to assist me with the following intent. Make sure everyone gets what they need. This is already happening anyway. Make sure everyone gets what they need from this live stream and help us ensure the connections. Oh, incoming. They're already checking the connections. They're checking for blocks. I kind of thought something was like this was going to happen. So I did a number of live streams a while ago where it was all about checking for connections. I don't know if any of you remember that they were checking a whole bunch of the connections that were kind of happening in the top realm. And recently, this already is not anything I had planned to talk about, but I'm just going to tell you because it happens to be cropping up. The last 2 months or so, I have noticed, I think what is happening is that they're testing the lower dimension, the lower bandwidth for the same thing. Like we tested the high bandwidth first to make sure that all of like the tubes were there. That's what it seemed like to me. Like all of the channels were open and properly connected. What are you doing? This happened the last time. Would you stop doing that to my light, please? Thank you. Just a minute. Exactly. Make sure everything is properly connected. That's what you did. And then recently, I was trying to figure out if I should even say this. Should I even say this or not? We're moving into a realm where there's, I'm on the fence about this. Should I tell you what's been going on, or should I, or is it TMI? Do you really need to know this? I may I may as well say it now. I was trying to figure out, the spirits communicate with me constantly. I'm clairaudient and clairvoyant and claircognizant. I have all the clairsenses. And you learn to pay it. Why am I leading? I can't believe I'm starting off the live stream with this information that I wasn't even going to say. I do have a filter when I need to put one on. Is this important? I was going to talk about the way spirit communicates, so maybe I'm just going to lead off with this. Take it as you will. So one of the things that happens is that I get flashes, visual flashes. I get light language, I get flashes of light. I've talked about that. One of the more common ways to receive information when you're clairvoyant is you get flashes of images. And most people in their daily life, until they're trained to pay attention to that, to recognize that it's actually spirit communication and not merely the product of one's own imagination, because you can reverse engineer it too. You could picture something in your mind and bring it about, but it's important to be able to tell the difference, at least for yourself. But when you're going about your business and there are random, just kind of something that seems random, or it's not on a train of thought, that you're just minding your own business and something suddenly comes into your head, pay attention. There's a message in it. And so I do pay attention. I've had long-standing training in paying attention to this kind of thing. So I've been, the last couple of months especially, I could tell that spirit was trying to communicate something to me, or I was getting these images and I was like, what the fuck does this mean? Why do I keep getting these images? Because they're explicit, and I know it's nothing that's happening in my life, nothing I was thinking about. And very specific, very explicit images, kind of like a lot of them were sexual, and there were some of like things that like I don't even have any experience with or inclination toward. And I was trying to figure out, and they were repeated too, like really repeated, like I was trying to figure out, why is this constantly in my face? It really has the feeling of being a message as opposed to, I don't know what it was, but I kept, so one of the things that happens when you think about spirit communication, it will communicate. Where's my diagram? Hang on a minute. Where's my other one? Hang on a second. I really didn't think we were going to talk about this at all, but it's this one. Hang on. So if you go to this diagram, if spirit is going to communicate with you, there are all these, or this is another one, like all of these different levels to get through. I didn't count these levels or anything. Don't take it too literally. It just means there's tons of strata. As you move up, if this is the densest region, as you move up, things become clearer and clearer, but sometimes you'll get a symbol or something that has more than one meaning. So usually what happens in spirit communication is I will frequently get something, and like in the third dimension, it will mean one thing because it's the realm of where one thing happens at a time. It's the realm of the choice. It's all, duality. And then as you go up, it becomes more and more about pluralism. And it's more and more plural the higher up you go. It's like it also means this, and it also means this, and it also means this. Every time you step up, there's going to be an additional level of meaning. And it doesn't mean that the other levels are not true, but there's an additional level of meaning. So it just becomes richer and you understand more. So if you're someone who is, let's say you're receiving something from your higher self, and it's communicating with you down here, you're going to understand it from your highest level of understanding. So let's say your highest level of understanding is someplace in the middle. That means you're going to be if you follow like this line, let's say they give you a symbol, and you understand it from your own level of perception, and let's say that your own level of perception, for the sake of argument, is like right around there. It could have, I don't know, maybe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 possible meanings. Over time, you learn to kind of figure out which one is which, or what the accurate one is. It's like reading. It's like reading anything. You learn how to navigate things that are presented to you in a way that's very nebulous. It gives you a certain amount of free choice. It requires more of you. It requires you to make the better decision. It requires you to have a rich sense of your own emotional ecosystem, so you can learn gradually to discern what is yours versus what is spirit, or like the way it works for me. Hang on a minute. What are you doing? Would you please go away? Go lie down. The way it works for me is that for example, if I'm trying to navigate a way forward, if I'm presented with a number of different paths, or let's say like a symbol, and I'm trying to figure out like a direction to take. If I'm presented with something like a choice, and let's say if I'm asking for what should I do in this circumstance, and I'm presented with a bunch of random images. They seem random, but I know they're not. I know that it's something that would be like a movie, or it's going to be a series of moving images. It's moving because it's higher dimensional communication. So that's why it's moving. It's pictorial because a lot of telepathy is pictorial. So it's moving images. And that's why Disney is at the forefront of the movement of communication, because it deals in dreams. A dream is a wish your heart makes. The way you learn to navigate yourself is to pay attention to where the love is, allow that to lead you, and these messages all come through in the Disney body of work. I'm going to talk more about that later, but the way spirit communication works, if you are presented with particularly repeating images, if you see an image once, stop and pay attention. If you see it twice, you really need to pay attention. If you see it 3 times, spirit is trying to tell you something, pay attention. You need to stop and figure out, what did I miss the first 2 times? So, and the way it works for me is that if I get an image, usually if I'm trying to figure out what something means, what I'm looking for personally is, I will know, this is just the way my spirit communication works. And so it might be true of you as well. Maybe you have a different way of doing it. There will be something, when I get the right answer, like what's going to happen if I see an image? Let's say it's, not that one. Let's say it's this. I was going to use this for a different talk, but I may as well use it. Let's say I get an image of a clementine. All of a sudden, one day I'm out doing something and not thinking about oranges at all, and all of a sudden I'm thinking about something totally different, and suddenly there's an image of a clementine or a tangerine. I'll notice it because seems kind of random, and I'll say, okay, why did they show me a tangerine right now? And usually it's not about one thing. It could be something that you just need to land on a specific answer. Like if you're at a salad bar and you think to yourself, what should I get to eat? And an image of a tangerine shows up, then that's pretty literal. And probably it's your spirit guides telling you to eat something in this range, oranges, or maybe you need something that's vitamin C or citrus at least. So pay attention to that. But if you're not really asking anything like that, and you just get an image that's like this, what you need to do is look at it and say, what are all the qualities that this possesses? So pay attention. You have to kind of learn to pay attention to your own reactions, because they're going to talk to you through you. You are the way that they communicate. They communicate using you as the language. So it's going to have whatever this has, whatever personal meaning it has for you, is one of the meanings that it has that they know about, because they can see everything about you. So if they're trying to get to, if you had a bad experience with tangerines, or you knew a girl named Clementine, she was particularly horrible, she pulled your hair when you were in 2nd grade, you hate her, then this could potentially have a specific meaning for you that is really clear to you and wouldn't be clear to anybody else. So that's important to know. It could also mean, the color orange. It could mean something round. It could mean something you need to look at something in the whole, and it has a lot of different aspects that all go together. It could mean that you need to peel something and see what's inside. It could mean you need vitamin C. It could mean creativity because it's orange. It could relate to your 2nd chakra. It could relate to an issue that you need to take it apart and examine it. It could mean nourishment. It could mean, you also have to take into consideration, at least when I do it, I pay attention to, because so much of, I deal so much in harmonics and letters. Letters are very specific, so I pay attention to spelling. I pay real close attention to initials, to vowels. What is reiterated? Is there a particular, I pay close attention to vowels and starting letters particularly. So it's something that grows in nature. So they could be talking to you about not just diet, but about creating something in nature. It could be something, and it's something that grows, that falls from a tree. So are you somehow are you leaving the place where you were grown? It's, what is it linked to? So it basically, there's an entire array. As a spirit communication becomes quantum. So we're moving up into that realm. So the meanings, the higher you go, it's going to gain more and more potential meanings. So what I do is I will basically take a guess. I will run through the list of things that potential meanings. And what I'm looking for, because it's the way that my spirit guides communicate, is some way forward, because energy takes the path of least resistance, always. So I'm sensitive enough to energy in like the field where I'm going to look for some place where the energy is softer, where it yields more. It's going to have somehow like a yes, like when you got something correct. You just have to pay attention to, and pay attention if you get an image or something like that, a sound, like, I should really talk about all the clairsenses separately. Like right now, I'll just talk about clairvoyance in general. Seeing images, like a lot of the clairsenses work together. So it's not like you can just get one thing. Like you could have a vision that has a whole bunch of sound, and you smell you smell things attached to it, or you have a very visceral feeling or very emotional response. All of those. Why are you standing here? Can you go lie down someplace, please? I know. I may have to go put him down if he doesn't stop. Tosh, go lie down. He moves about 10 inches and then he's going to creep back. At any rate, so these things are basically, the more accomplished you are at bringing in all of your senses and working holistically, your senses, your spirit guides are going to know that about you, and you're going to begin to get more and more of your senses working together, in general. So one of the things that happens, I know when I got something right. Number one, at least the way it works for me, once I get the answer correct, like if they're showing me a clementine and I'm like, what does this mean? Why are you showing me? I don't understand it. Tell me, show me again. Like you can ask for clarity. Show me again, or what the hell hell does that mean? Like, I'll say that sometimes. Like, I like this example that I'm about to give you in a minute, which is how this whole conversation started, and I have not even started on my friggin' list. You know, you'll get an image, and you'll be like, oh, what does that mean? What does that have to do with the price of beans? I don't understand. I'm not at a salad. I don't know why you showed me this image. You can just say, why'd you show me that image? Please clarify. And see what else jumps out at you. It could be something in your environment, it could be something in your body, it could be something else, a song that you suddenly think of. Pay attention to what you notice. Notice what you notice. It's important. So eventually, the more you pay attention to the way everything is connected, the first thing to know is that everything is connected. Everything is connected. So in the beginning, I grant you, that can be kind of overwhelming. You're like, well, if everything's connected, how do I discern? How is there a level of everything? If everything's connected, I'm already really confused. And I don't even want to get out of bed because, so everything is connected and everything is meeting you. You can always call on your highest level personal guides. And you could say, directly, like, first of all, they are really keen on getting you the information that you need. They can see very clearly when you're overwhelmed or when you're okay, when it's safe to give you more. I will tell you that they want to get this information to you. You need to be responsible for saying, okay, I'm overwhelmed. Pare it down. If you're overwhelmed, say, pare it down. Give me the essential information and give it to me in such a way that it cannot, that I won't miss it. Which, number one, they do that anyway. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, you could say, okay, please is this right? Does this mean what I think it means? Does it mean that I should do this? And then pay attention to whether you get a feeling of a yes or a no. I get what I call affirmatives sometimes, which is a flash of light that means yes, or sometimes it'll be a flash of light that I know from experience it means remember this for later. When you get something that is repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated, either, in my experience, it's either because I need to keep doing it more, like you got it right, you just need to do that more, or, but it's important to differentiate, or sometimes it's something, if I'm getting a symbol unchanged, repeated and repeated and repeated, it's almost always because I still haven't gotten the message. They're repeating this particular thing until I get a yes. So either, and sometimes it could be, like, I'll tell you why the symbol that I'm talking about in a minute, and this is why I'm like, I almost don't want to bring it up because I just don't. You'll see why. But then I'll tell you, because I was literally faced with the symbol, like, don't show me that. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I don't know why. They were showing me an asshole, and I don't know why. And I kept saying, why are you showing me this asshole in my face again? Why is this asshole in my face again? Is it talking about a person? Is the person an asshole? I'm like, definitely yes. I mean, how many people? Yes, guaranteed there's one asshole or another. But I didn't understand because it was going on for months. It's been going on for like 2 months where I keep getting this image, and then there was a circle around it. Like, and belonged to a man. So, I don't know why. It just did. Like, who is it? What do you want me? Why are you showing me this? And then they're showing me a circle around it. And so I was just like, just began guessing, like, okay, is it a man with hemorrhoids? Is it, I just couldn't figure out, is it something, do I need to turn something around? Do I need to approach it differently? Is it the path of least resistance? And then I finally, and I was really trying to figure it out. And I kept getting like affirmatives, like, yes, it's this, but it didn't go away. Like, usually if you get the right answer, you'll move on to like the rest of the sentence. Or like, what else do you want me to know? What are we talking about exactly? I know what we're talking about exactly, but I don't understand in what context. Why? And then I figured out after a long time. So like the symbol has not entirely gone away. I feel like it's fading, but it's connected to something that I can tell that there is some kind of an issue. It feels like an issue that it's connected to, but I don't quite understand that. There's like a big blank space after that. And I keep seeing like the side of a hill, almost like there's an obstacle or something. So, and then I finally figured out after a while that it has to do with somebody clenching. Somebody's holding on to something, like refusing to release, refusing to let go. And the circle around it, it was like movement in two directions. And they were showing me a sphincter muscle. And it was like movement had to go in two directions. And it was something was clenching and refusing to allow movement, is what I finally figured out, that I think that that's it. And the circle around it was like something is circling the drain. Like I don't know, like it's about to go through, but it hasn't yet. Something needs to like whatever the sphincter muscle, it has to relax. It could be referring to the situation in general. It didn't seem like it belonged to a specific individual, because I did ask. I was like, who's the asshole that keeps showing up in my face? But I think it's the situation that is being like a pain in the ass, or like something that just will not let go or will not relax, something like that. But then, so then back to the connections thing. This is not at all, not even remotely what I was going to talk about. It's a surprise for me too, every time I do one of these things. So as I said before, remember that when we were talking about all of the connections, we were testing the connections, or I should say the connections were being tested for I don't know what to call it. I want to say the tubes, or the circulation system that's on the top end. It's like the tubes where the circulation system. When we were checking those, when I first started to do these live streams, there was they were checking to see where the breaks were, so that they would reconnect. They were filling in all of the holes so that we would have, because something's going to come through. Something is going to come through. It's going to be energy, a very strong amount of energy, and I feel resources as well. But it has to be, it's like the top side connection circuitry, the circulation system, must be able to hold it, must be able to circulate it, must be connected and strong enough to carry it. They have to be strong enough to carry it, so it's important. So then I started getting all of this just recently, like the last 3 or 4 weeks maybe. I've been getting these flashes of sexual imagery that's just like out of the blue. Like I'll be just like driving or totally minding my own business, doing something, and all of a sudden they're just like, some of them were really disturbing, like things like like bondage imagery or something like suddenly jarring. And I was trying to figure out, like, what the hell is that? What are you trying to tell me? So I sat with that for a while and I was trying to figure it out. And then I realized that they're doing the same thing that they did with the top network. The top network was being checked for vacancies, mostly. It wasn't blockages, it was being checked for breaks in the circuit, so that they could fill in the gaps so that it could carry resources or so that it could hold something. They were checking the tubes to make sure that it could sufficiently carry something. And then recently it occurred to me, and I think I finally got this right because I got an affirmative when I came up with this answer. It occurred to me that they were trying to figure out, because we're going to get a lot of voltage. We're going to get a very large amount of current, a large amount of current that's very striated, very directional, has a lot of force, a lot of intention and propulsion behind it. So then I realized, what? It's lower, and they're checking the lower network is, I think, what it is. I think they're checking the lower network to see where the resistance is, to see what can make, like if they put this into my mind, am I going to have a reaction? Am I going to have a flinch response? It felt like they were checking me to see where I would go into a flinch or a judgment or a strong, where's the resistance? It's basically like, where's the resistance? And if we show you this, if you know, I feel like I'm being tested by like a scientist or something. Like we're gonna put this into your head to see what your reaction is. And I was aware that what they're trying to get me to do is relax and be non-judgmental. Like they're trying to, there's something that's going to be coming in that has the potential. I'm not even entirely sure what this is. I really hope it's money. But money and substance, like matter, not all of it. Some of it's just fine. There is some, it is linked to money though. There's some, they're looking for my resistance to certain frequencies, like where does she carry the, what is going to cause an involuntary flinch? Yep, that's the way I wanted to say it. Thank you. Because that's what we can't have, which I know this about myself. Like there are certain things that are going to cause me, like you show me an image of, I don't know, pedophilia or bondage, and it's going to make me like almost immediately hostile. If I'm not careful, I have to be really careful. Not that I want to approve of it or condone it, but if I can't, it's one of those things they want me to really be aware of, and emphasis on involuntary flinch response. Like I know on the Council of Balance, one of the reasons that we went into those sculptures to do all of the work, the telepathic, etc., is because it helps us stabilize any involuntary or any emotional response, any place where we would be tempted to have our own personal agenda as opposed to a detached, calculated, measured response. Because the place for strong emotions, it does have a place, but you can do that in 3. If anything is negative, you can do that in 3. You have to. You can still have your own intention or your own agenda, a preference, your own preference. You can still hold that in 4. But in 5, you can't take everybody to 5 if you're still having, you know, angry flashes of anger or judgment or whatever. You can't take anger someplace where it doesn't exist. You can't take fear or judgment someplace where it doesn't exist. So if we want to get everybody up to 5, I have to make sure that I am personally free of those things. So I finally figured out that what they're doing is testing the lower network to see where any flinch responses are. And some of the stuff is like, it's like they're trying to catch me unaware. You know, it would be easy for me to get myself into a meditative state and say, okay, no matter what they show me, I'm going to be very measured. And I'm not going to respond. I'm going to be calm regardless. But so that's not where the way they're testing me. The way they're testing it is to have me they suddenly put something in, I'll be in the shower, I'll be, taking the dogs for a walk, and suddenly something comes in, and they're waiting to see how much can we get her to react, or is she basically, calm no matter what comes up, because the networks have to be joined together and running well, so that we can all help stabilize one another when information comes in, when certain things, it's like it's happening a little bit. It's happening a little bit, like, reactions to the Amazon, reactions to whatever is happening in the news. We are all, to a degree, transmuting for one another, but there's going to be some more of that. Other things are going to crop up. So it's just something that I know to be aware of. So where was I? I was talking about spirit communication. Hang on. Oh. Ah. Yeah. That story. Wait a minute. All right. I was going to talk about certain things. So I was debating whether I should even bring this up at all. I knew I was going to talk about it at some point. But certain things are happening I almost never talk about twin flames if I can help it. I try not to really get into it, because I'm trying to avoid a huge onslaught. But and there are people who do that kind of work, so I would like to transfer all the work to them. However, I do have certain current updated information. I was talking with someone who I know to be my like one of the main people that I work with. You know how I've said that every person I work with is the kind of the lead person for that. They represent a group of people. A lot of people that I work with have twin flames, or a twin flame divine partnership, twin flame-esque, like they have a twin echo, even if they're not actual twins who did this, the switching or whatever. Not everybody is, but a lot of people have divine counterparts, and those divine counterparts will often fall into a twin flame pattern, or an echo, or they will be affected by what's happening in the actual twin community. And we need that entire wave to work also. So, but nonetheless, I've got one person in particular that I work with who I think of as it's a couple, and they're twin pair in union too. They're actually married. They're on their divine life, their divine mission. And every time I work with her, I know that it has to do with that particular group. So it's genuine twin flames. So everything that happens within their union, I know has ramifications for the entire group. So when I have a meeting with her, I like to come on here and tell you what the update is, because it's always significant. A while ago, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned, I think I wrote a small post about it. Oh yeah, that's what it's going to lead into the cow story. Hang on a minute. I talked with her about this. There have been certain long-standing imbalances between the divine masculine and divine feminine, between the masculine and feminine altogether. So part of moving up in the fifth dimension is restoring the divine masculine and the divine feminine templates. Both of these things need restoration and recovery and repair. So I pay attention to this. One of the imbalances, there are so many imbalances, I'm not going to get into all of them, but one of the things that is that, one of the ways that it's been very imbalanced is that women typically have, or the feminine aspect. So if you're a man and this applies to you, don't freak out, nobody's insulting you. The feminine energy has typically gone off balance in that the females tend to, or the feminine has been very, very over service oriented, and it's been like they've taken on too much of the masculine energy and gone out of balance, because the masculine energy is the one that always does. But the feminine principle, what it does, is supposed to sit and receive. It's like the it must come back into balance by receiving more, as opposed to over-serving, over-giving, being hyper flexible and in hyper giving mode all the time. There has been a population within the feminine group overall that has been very overdoing. So this is one of the things that we need to rebalance. That doesn't mean that the men have to do all of the work, but the men have to step up because the geometry is shifting. So you remember where in the past, so we have to depart from tradition to the degree that we go through the 11 gateway, which is balanced give and take between the top and the bottom. It's no longer about triangles, and we're going through the 11 gateway. So the top and the bottom must be equally distant. You're getting as much as you're receiving. So that means your masculine and your feminine energies are balanced. They're in equal measure. Since the feminine principle typically has done a lot more, we need the feminine to receive more now. In the beginning, sometimes there can be a little bit of an overcorrection to bring us back into, center point faster. And the men need to step up their service to the feminine. So it's no longer just about going to work outside the home and you come home and everything is handed to you. We're trying to rebalance the entire group. So women have been underpaid for doing the same amount of work. Long term, that amounts to the fact that we've served more and not received enough. So that's one of the things that needs to be rebalanced. So one of the things that happened in this couple who represent, so one of the ways it works is that everything, I've said it before, but it really is actually true. Part of practical magic is you can utilize energetic principles, and you can tweak something in the material world that's fairly small, as long as you have the ability to link it energetically to something that is much larger. And I've said this before, like it's really true that if you want to, clean corruption out of Congress, you can do your dishes and say, with your mind, this plate is filthy. The dirt on this plate represents, you can state it with conviction, this represents corruption, or this represents all the dirt in whatever. Apply a meaning to it with your mind and then clean it off. when you take an action with intent and you link it to an object, that's all magic is. But you're basically taking responsibility for an issue. And then you're taking an action. And that's a form of practical prayer. There's nothing remotely malevolent or evil about it. You say, may the highest good for all be served. Or if you like, you can say, I'm doing this in Jesus' name, or I'm doing it in, with only benevolent intention. But you're taking responsibility for cleaning it up. It is my intention that all of this excess food, all of the energy go into the land in someplace there's a famine. You can take responsibility for it, for where that energy goes. You do it with intention and your own will, your own love. Whatever you do with love is going to be carried. So you can send it. It's a way of, but link it to something in tangible form. That's one of the reasons we light candles, because it's a very intense form of energy, and you can apply that towards something with love. You feel a great deal of love. You apply it to the candle, and you say, "This represents, may this child be healed." Sometimes I'll write someone's name on a candle. I mean, this is what we do when we go to church and things like that. But the point is, you don't have to give your power away to a saint or to a priest. You can do it. You be responsible for that. So when people come to me, and I know that this particular couple, I know that they're the people that I work with whenever we make adjustments collectively, and she's aware of this. It's not like something I'm not doing some kind of, hoodoo magic on her. She knows this perfectly well. So we've discussed it. I spoke to her husband too. They recognize what's going on, but I'm just here to update you. So she had surgery on her left arm. She's very overworked. She has been very overworked. So your left side of the body, that represents the feminine. That's your feminine side. Anything that happens on your left side of the body is going to relate to, that it's going to, if you have an issue that has manifested onto some sort of ailment on the left side of your body, it has to do with the feminine, or it has to do with the past, because that's what, or the shadow aspect. So pay attention. And so in her case, it was one nerve that she had to have this one nerve through overwork needed to be moved. It needed to be moved to a totally different location. So she had, it was moved way over so it wouldn't constantly get overworked and pinched. So she had the surgery, and her arm was going to be totally numb for 3 weeks. So the number 3 is pertinent too. Nothing is random. So the fact that she's going to be out of commission, forced to stop working. She can't do anything at all with her left arm. Can't do anything with her left hand. So also her husband he's been in a living out of the country because there was a thing about twin flames being distanced from one another. So he had to come up to meet her. She's in Canada. So he came up to take care of her. Or did she go? I think she went back down there now. Anyway, but they're together so that he can take care of her. She's forced to stop working, stop overworking. So that's pertinent because it relates to everyone, all of the divine feminines in the twin flame dynamic. There is a collective adjustment being made now. So the women, those of us who have been we work through the night and we're getting very underpaid, but we keep working because it's really important. And we know, this leads me to my cow story, just a second. It's important, it relates. I was talking to her about so I share this because, and all of the times when my guides talk to me during a session, the only reason I'm saying it is because my ears need to hear it too, because I'm doing the same thing she does. And my guides were really talking to me a lot about that during her session, you know, nudging me like, yeah, this is for you too. You know, you said that to her and it's good advice, but you just pay attention to the words that just came out of your mouth because that message is for you. And I knew that. That happens to different degrees in various sessions, but every time I talk to this person, it happens all the time because she's got the same issues I do. Very much pays attention to like little details, little things that have to be tweaked. Like it's perfectionism, not hostile, but things that like, I know that all of these things need to be attended to. And I know that I can't sit down because there's nobody else to do it. Nobody else is going to do it. So I keep doing it. And because I keep doing it, nobody else steps up. So there comes this point where somebody, basically she's forced her arms in a sling and she can't do anything for 3 weeks. So what's interesting though, is that she's making an adjustment for the Divine Feminine Collective, who need to learn to allow other people to handle certain things. Basically, they need to know the ropes so that if we sit down, somebody else will get the, you know, all the little things done that we know we do that other people don't know we do, because they just are magically taken care of. Like it's easy, like a lot of husbands would step up to do the dishes, but or something like that. But there are a lot of little things that like, I know that I take care of this little thing every day and I never mention it to anybody. And if I'm gone, a lot of things we know are going to fall, you know, they're not going to get done. And we know how everything is connected. So if this little thing over here doesn't get done, it's going to mean that that's not going to get done. And pretty soon, like a couple of weeks later, everything's gone to hell in the handbasket. And instead of having a vacation and coming back to someplace that is still running, you're coming back and you're like, my God, I can never take a day off ever again because the whole place was turned into a disaster. So maybe that's not true. But what's interesting is that because her husband's actually doing a very good job, but she was expressing to me that she had to have somebody wash her hair. She had to have somebody put her hair in a ponytail. She couldn't even do it herself. It was really frustrating. Her husband had to step up to fill in all the things, to also gain some appreciation for the number of things that she does. And suddenly when she's at a commission, but still there, she can say, by the way, you know, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this. I also need my hair brushed. I also need to put it away. I also need, you know, all of these things need to be done. So, and so in the meantime, she's dealing with learning how to not jump into overgive anymore. Giving to a balanced degree is fine. We need to do more of it. But those of us who tend to err always in that direction, we need to bring it back to center so that we're not over serving or over like compulsive contribution. That's an error. And then the other side needs to realize how much is actually getting done that is perhaps unappreciated or unobserved, and learn how to step into a caregiving role if they haven't been doing that. I must say I'm pretty impressed with her husband, though. He's doing a great job. But at any rate, what I wanted to say, though, is that the adjustments that she's making for the Divine Feminine, he's making adjustments for the Divine Masculine, too. And so what I thought, since every force evolves a form and nothing is random, during the time she's recovering from her surgery, she went to live in his house. So she's got a house in Canada. He's got a house in the States. When I spoke to her on this session, she was staying, I find this fascinating, the way spirit communicates, like nothing is random. Spirit's always communicating. And whenever I have a session with somebody, one of the first things I do, since I know that I'm being presented with something in their environment, something in their field, something in the background of the screen that I'm looking at, is indicative. There are messages everywhere. So when I spoke to her this last time, she was having the session from the basement of her husband's house, and so it's the basement. So it's like the lowest level of the divine masculine, where it's like the understructure. You know, it's the basement of his house. And what I found notable is that the place had been taken down to the studs. So there's no sheetrock down there. The walls had been taken out. And I said, is it like, I said politely, like, is it like this, or are you in the middle of doing construction? And she said, there was water damage because there was a flood. So a flood in the basement, well, what does that mean? If you pay attention to spirit communication, water is emotion. So if a basement of a house is flooded, and I understand that a lot of basements flood, but if a basement in the house is flooded, pay attention to the emotional underpinnings. Pay attention to what is going on below the surface, what's not obvious. If there's emotions that are building up to the point where it's not draining and where the walls have been damaged, so it's affecting the structure, that's basically unresolved emotional issues. So with respect to her husband, he's making the correction to this stuff because their walls have been taken down. He's caring for his wife in the basement of his house. She's got a couch down there. They've taken the rotted walls down. The basement's dry. He's caring for her. So it tells me that there is now a repair being made to the divine partnership template, which they represent, because I know they do. It's not a random couple. They're the people that I know, that I work with them, and they represent the divine partnership. There is a correction being made where the masculine is being more nurturing. The stagnant sitting water has been cleaned up. There's like emotional give and take. He's a very nurturing person. He came on the session too, which is fantastic. Like, that never happens. When was that almost never happens. It's actually amazing to me, the numbers. It really is. It saddens me a lot. The number of times that even with people, like, we're having a great session and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, my husband's home. I gotta go. My husband's home. Like, don't I know I'm talking to you? Or something like that. But like I gotta go. No, he doesn't know about any of this. I had to, I had one person say, I had to save money, and like I had to pay for my session, but like I just had to have a secret stash in order to pay for my session because I don't want my husband to know. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that's not very good. Maybe you want to look at that. Maybe you want to look at that issue. Why are you married to someone who doesn't know what you actually are doing, or you can't be forthright and honest about what I'm actually doing? When your husband, how much does your behavior change when your spouse pulls in the driveway? Come on. I actually had a session with somebody one time. I did think this was funny. Somebody had brought their computer up to the attic. It was their phone. I had to have a session with somebody. They were hiding in their attic. But in that case, they were hiding from their 2-year-old. She had several children, and she's like, there's no place in this house for me to get any peace and quiet. So she took her cell phone up to the attic because it was the only place her 2-year-old couldn't find her and chase her down. Anyway, I thought that was funny. But that's a different kind of thing. But your spouse, that does lead me. So I was going to tell you this cow story. I've been meaning to tell this cow story for a while. But I feel like I'll talk about coming out to friends and family first, because I started to touch on it the last time. That really is something that seems to be very prevalent. We're at this key threshold. We really are, where things at this juncture, we can't hide them anymore. We're literally at the threshold. And we're all, as a collective, we're about to step over. Like I really don't think it's more than a couple of weeks away. I can feel my daughter rolling her eyes, because I know I always say that. She's like, you always say we're in the middle of a big wave and we're just about to move, and then it doesn't happen. Nonetheless, I'm not the only one who knows this. Very shortly, there's going to be a massive tipping point in which nothing can remain hidden. Already we're kind of there. There are, the way it works in timelines is that I think this is a very localized one. Pretend she's not there, or pretend she's about the size of the height of the star. Something will be programmed into the timeline when it's way up here, and it will occur, literally occur, like it's set into a timeline code when it's all the way up here, and then it will basically happen up here, and then it's going to happen down there, and then it's going to happen down there, and it's going to happen down here, layer by layer by layer by layer. And then form, it's going to show up in form when it's all the way down at the bottom, because that's where form happens. So the reason sometimes these things, the reason sometimes, like, it's very difficult to predict time, because this thing's constantly rotating. So when I look at a given issue, already it has happened up here, but if you follow any given issue down here, it's quite possible that it just hasn't even happened yet. So if somebody says, like, I know that, whatever, it's probably a bad example. Like, probably a bad example. I should use a different example. Too late now. Oh God, is it too late? Should I stop? Should I go back? Oh my gosh. Up here, I'm married already. Down here, there's like no approach. Yeah, and things like that. Something is simultaneously, it's like it has happened up here already. And then you're just like waiting for it to land. That's just the way it is. It's not even up to me. Like it's not. Sometimes you just have to wait. And sometimes things, depending on the scale of the toroidal field, if you're dealing with like a global circumstance, it has happened already. If this is the Earth and it's the size of the star, and this toroidal field is a toroidal field that's that scale, you know, you could have basically, they're just a whole bunch of different timelines. So there's a lot of adjusting that can go on before things come down into form. Basically, when it gets to about this level, it's a done deal, and well, higher than that. It really depends on what we're talking about. There are certain things where you can adjust them until like basically down to about here. You can keep making adjustments, and then there's certain things like once it's here, man, it's coming in, and you're just you can only now respond to that given form. And then if you really don't like that, you could wait until that happens, have a response to it, and then make an additional change up here. That's usually the way it works. At any rate, where was I going with it? Oh, I was going to talk about this cow story. I keep meaning to say this. it takes me back to this woman who has her arm in a sling. It's totally linked to that story. This is actually the first thing that I actually had on my pad that I was like, I'm going to tell that cow story tonight. And it's not even a cow. So sometimes the way my guides work is that they will bring me back to, they'll make me think of a particular thing. Like sometimes when I see something, I will get a flash of light and it will have an indication because I work outside of time. I work with time, but I work outside of time. So sometimes, and I'm also my own guide because we're all our own higher selves, right? So sometimes I will get a flash of light while I'm going about something, and I know that it's a message from basically myself in the future that says, pay attention to that because you're going to need to remember this thing when we get up there. So I just remember it and I park it in my head and we go along. So a while ago, this was a while ago, I saw a documentary. I don't even know where this was. I don't remember where I even saw it, but it was a documentary. Might have been a Qigong master. I don't even remember. But I remember that it was a demonstration where this Asian man was going to demonstrate his remarkable energetic ability. I remember why I watched it. He was going to do this demonstration for a documentary of his remarkable energy abilities. So I paid attention to that because I do stuff with energy and I love that shit. But I didn't like what I saw. I was displeased. I didn't like it. The way they were doing this demonstration was, I found it to be disrespectful, and I had issues with it morally. What they did was they went to, it wasn't even a cattle farm. It was something like, it was either buffalo, it might have been buffalo. Could have been Watusi cattle, but I don't think it was. I think it was something like buffalo or some kind of, like a bovine species. They weren't horses. It was some kind of a, I believe it was buffalo. And what his demonstration was, and it was also, it bothered me because it was two men who owned the herd of buffalo, and they had this buffalo farm, and they invited this Asian man to demonstrate how he was going to show mastery over these animals. And that interested me too. I didn't think that it was mastery though when he did it. I thought it was shabby as all get out, and it wasn't at all. I just took issue with it, the way he did it. And what he was going to try to do, what he did, was get them to lay down. He was going to get this entire herd of buffalo to lie down and basically just pass out and lie down. And he was going to use his energetic ability to suppress them all. So I don't like that to begin with. Could I see it having a purpose? Yes. Do I think it could be upgraded substantially to be a lot more respectful and harmonious? Yeah. I don't want to say to what purpose. You know, what are you showing me that for? What do you do? Why? I didn't like it. At any rate, what was interesting though, so I was glad I saw it anyway. So he was doing all sorts of things with his hands, and the first, so it's a wide herd, it's an entire herd of buffalo that was in a large paddock, fenced area. And the first ones to lie down were like the young bulls and basically the calves. They all lay down, really just fell. Not hard, but they lay down and kind of went to sleep. And the next ones to lay down were mostly the older bulls. and they lay down. And then it was, yeah, I think the young bulls laid down first, then it was the older bulls, and then it was the rest of the cows, the rest of the females, and then the last one standing, and this is what really stuck out at me. There was one buffalo standing, and it was the lead female. Everybody else drops. This is why it takes us to takes us to Kimberly, who has her arm in a sling, who has to stop. She's being forced to lay down, forced to stop. But came to the situation where he has used his powers and he has suppressed everyone, but it's just the lead cow that is still standing. And there was a question kind of posed in the documentary, like, why is this the case? Or he keeps working at it, how do we get this cow to lay down? And I thought, well, first off, let's rethink that strategy to begin with. It's already an abuse of power, if you wield it, to try to get the lead cow trying to get a cow to lay down. Already it's an abuse of power. But if something is obviously not willing to stand down, there's a reason, and you have no business making her do it. And it bothered me because I thought the approach was wrong. And I know perfectly well why she's not going to lay down. She's not going to lay down. And the reason she's not going to lay down is because she's the one who's got the bridge. And I was thinking to myself, and it's easy to make corrections to things when you're not there, but the whole thing bugged me. And I thought, what you need to do, I don't know, I have experience with herding animals. And what you need to do is walk up, and basically you could, from a position of saying, okay, I got it. What she's going to look for is that somebody else is in charge who's watching over her family. She's basically going to look for that. If somebody goes and stands there and says, it's okay, I've got it, she's going to read their energetic signature and see if they're actually up to the task. She's going to look to see if they're also a responsible female. Do you actually know what you're doing, or am I leaving it with someone? It's basically like Kimberly. Like, do you have any idea the number of things that could go wrong if I just lie down and go to sleep and leave, some buffoon in charge who thinks it's a good idea for all of the family to lay down and go to sleep, because I'm the one who's doing everything. I'm watching all the minutia. She knows who fell asleep. She could have probably predicted it. The whole premise was wrong. She's going to look for some, and I think eventually they got her to drop, but it ruined the entire documentary. Like, I don't even want to watch this thing anymore. They could have used it to teach a completely different lesson. It also bothered me that it was three men with no respect for either the animals or the herding population. The whole herding mentality. And I thought that they really missed an opportunity to pose that question. Why is she the last one to drop? What's she holding out for? If everybody else went down almost immediately, what is it that what is creating her resilience? And why is the dynamic different with this one? And I also wanted to be the one to answer the question. Like, she's not going to fall until somebody else shows up who can take the task from her. I don't think that so she was wobbling too. Like, this female buffalo was wobbling. Does she want to lie down? Does she know what they want of her? Does she feel the weight of that energy? Yeah, I'm sure she does. But it would have been kinder to say, it's okay, I got it, you can take a rest. And then actually do the job with competence. Then I'm sure she'd probably say, all right, you know, I'm happy to hand this off. Everybody needs a break. But she's too responsible to go until somebody else gets there who takes the bridge. So such is the case with the divine masculine and divine feminine at this time. So I'm pleased to report that at least in the case of this one couple, there's a change that's going on with the structure, the substructure of the divine masculine, where he's caring for the feminine, the divine feminine, in a way that is basically stepping up to the plate. And I think that the change appears like it's going to be longer than the 3 weeks. So the 3 weeks was the surgery recovery time. What's interesting now in her case is that there are additional symptoms where she's, oh, this is another thing I wanted to say. I have noticed, this may put somebody's mind at ease, because I have noticed when I talk to people, there's like a like migrating, there's like a migrating ball of symptoms that I'm not telling you not to take your medical problems seriously, but I thought that I would at least put this out there in case any of you discover this too. You're not alone. Symptoms that resemble MS seem to be floating around through a lot of light workers that seem to be like, there seems to be like a nervous system reset going on. I should probably do a post about this so it gets shared, but I really noticed it, where like numb extremities and sudden areas of your body going numb, suddenly losing words. I have seen it now being reported in children, in a wide array of adults, and then it lasts for like a week, 2 weeks, and then it goes away. So I don't know if any of you have been experiencing that. It's getting a lot of hearts. Anyway, so get checked out, whatever you need to get checked out, but don't jump to the conclusion that you necessarily have MS, because I've heard a lot of that recently too. You know, I'm not telling you not to go to the doctor, but you should just be aware. Maybe go to the doctor. Maybe go to the doctor if it lasts for like, you know, like over a month or something. But it seems to me like there's like a couple of weeks where it's like sudden numbness and tingling in extremities and just regions of the body. It seems to be, yeah. Let's see. So much to say. I'm just going to keep talking until they turn off. So I do have a lot to say in this one. Hang on a minute. Yeah. So I'm going to do that one in a minute. Oh, I started to talk about my templates. The last, yeah. The last live stream that got cut off, I was talking about the way templates work. And I made all sorts of diagrams. God damn. I've got so many notes and it's so unorganized. Hang on a minute. I talked about, no, yes, I talked about that before. Hang on. Hang on. I think I talked about aborted creations, half creations, what to do with them. Could talk about that later. Sorry about this, 1 second. Oh, one thing, so I'm just gonna see if I can plow through some of these some of these smaller topics. Basically what I do is I think of something that I need to talk about, I write it down, and then I draw a line underneath it. But then I wind up having all of these just pads and pads of paper, and it just all needs to be organized, which I'm sure I could do it if I had a lot of time, and I need a bigger table too. All right, so since I haven't organized it, I'm just going to ramble on until, yeah. Regarding the issue of eating meat, oh, DNA restructuring, yes, I will talk about that. Yes, let me go. That's going to take me back to my templates and the spaghetti. I'm going to get back to that in a second. Oh, should I do that? Wait a second. All right, maybe I'll just start right there. Okay. Yes, I'm going to leave that. You're right. You're right. I'm going to leave there. So the way a template works, if you missed my last one, the way a template works, it's like a pattern. It is a pattern. And your first creation is yourself. So every person, just to very, very briefly recap, every person has a certain amount of energetic space for codes that we come down with. So we come down with 2 strands of biological DNA, which takes up a certain amount of space. And we come down with 10 strands. So our goal is to get all of humanity up to at least 12 strands of activated DNA. So 2 strands are biological. And then we need to get the 10 strands of, the additional 10 strands of like spiritual energetic patterning, light body DNA, reactivated, up and running and re-established, which would take you to 12. So our goal is to get, so the 5th dimensional human being has 12 strands of active DNA, 2 of which are biological. A lot of us have 24 strands. If you came down with a, this isn't a matter of better or worse, it has more to do with job. How much do you, like, you're not gonna, wait, is that true? Hang on a minute. I'm trying to figure out a way to say this, because I don't want it to carry meaning that I don't want it to have. Some people on the planet have 48 strands of active DNA. The people who came down carrying, who had a job so that they needed that much coding. They need to carry that much in. There are fewer people who have that many active strands. Basically, it's not something that you would necessarily wish for its own sake, because it also carries a tremendous responsibility with it. So it's not like, you know, you think, oh, I wish I was like a, you know, magic being who has 48 strands of active DNA. If you were capable of carrying it and really wanted it, it would require something of you that was enormous. There are a lot of master light workers who came in specifically to help do major work on the planet, foundational reestablishments, things like that, who have very big jobs on the planet, who came down with 24 strands of active DNA, or who are going from, who came in with 12 activated and who are going up to 24 strands. The amount of light that you carry means that your responsibilities increase substantially. So you just need to know that. At any rate, so your first creation is yourself, and everything is going to mirror you. It's going to be a reflection or I don't know. I don't have a word for that. Okay, hang on. So I started to say this before. I did say it. If you have, so I'm not sure if I'm going to repeat the entire lecture. I kind of wish that it hadn't cut off because I was about to launch into that whole thing last time. Hang on a minute. Where are my diagrams? Just a minute. Oh, then I'm going to talk about that too. Yes. I do have a lot of diagrams today. So the way templates work, if everyone starts off with, does everyone need the 10 strands? Yes. Some do come in with 12, yeah. We have the 2 biological strands when we're born. Some people who are born awake have, they have their additional 12 strands of like light DNA. Like I was born with 12 strands. Actually, I was born with 12 and moved to 24. And at this point, I have 48 that were activated. But they were activated in 2000. The additional ones that I needed, it's kind of like you get them as you need them or as you're capable of getting them. So I was born with 12. I'm not entirely sure when I got the 24. I wasn't even going to talk about myself, but there you go. Fully activated, but I know that the massive jump that I had in 2013 took me out totally different level, but it came with a job. Like I got awakened. It's not like you get these. What came in for me was like, okay, we turned you on again now for this job. Now you're on the job. So it's not like you can say, nah, what you might want to. But like, here's the thing about the 12, like, don't sniff at 12 strands of DNA because your 2 strands are biological. The additional 10 strands are going to give you back your so in the 5th dimension, everybody has 12 strands functional. And they're all up and running and everybody's lit. Like that's what we talk about when we say you're lit. You get all of your clear senses back. So you're gonna, because you need them in order to function in the network of where everybody is telepathic and everybody has their clear senses and everybody is to one degree or another, clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, all of your clear senses, and we all communicate telepathically. So we're going to need, everyone up there has to have at least 12. So during the move from 3 to 5 involves reestablishing, regaining all of the lost senses. So that's very exciting. And then from there, so usually like people who carry something like 24 are ones who are like pillars who need to move a lot of, who are usually there to help activate a lot of other people. Yeah. The job really becomes huge. And so what that is basically is that you come in as a tuning fork where it's not about, really not, please don't hear it that way. It's not about any kind of hierarchy, a value-based hierarchy. That's not it. It basically it's like you need this tool to do this job. So hold this. It's like, somebody saying, here, you need to hold this wire. You're going to need this amount of voltage because something's going to come through you. So hold this amount of voltage. And so you have to take all of this, it's like a bundle of wires. People who have, who are kind of in the range of 24, they're usually people who radiate or they transmit a very high vibrational frequency, and it's their job to be the dominant tuning fork that awakens other people. You know, like they could, like I do this, and I know that a lot of other people who are speakers, like Rick Jewers, he transmits a frequency that triggers a lot of people. I know I trigger people like crazy. It kind of jump starts their awakening a lot. And in order to do that job, they just need more voltage. Yeah, so that's that. Where was I going with this? Oh, so there are group templates too. The way individual templates too, just to really quickly recap. There will be like an assortment of choices where when you go in, there's only a certain amount of space you can take into a physical body, and just for the purposes of discussion, before we talk about light body, I'll talk about the previous carbon-based life forms, the carbon-based bodies that we had. You can only carry so much. You're not really in a group dynamic, so it's kind of like you try to pack as much, only that which you will need. This is one of the reasons why it's so frustrating when we incarnate into a carbon-based body. It's so dense and so isolated. You only remember the one. You're really reduced to a single experience. You don't remember often. You don't remember your past lives. You come in with only the things that you're going to need for that particular incarnation. So you might carry. If all of these little smiley faces, each color represents a different archetype, you might say, I take 4 yellow strands of, this archetype, and I'm going to pull a little bit from various archetypes, and I'm going to make, you create yourself first. You've got whatever your biological DNA is. Well, let's say if this is the amount that I can carry. It's just like carry-on luggage on an airplane. You can't carry everything. You can carry as much as it's going to fit in this bag. It's got to go under your seat. So you're going to take the bare necessities. Unless you're in a group dynamic. If you're in a group dynamic, you'll go down and you'll pack. You'll go down with a group aim, with the express intention. You'll be linked, and you'll be able to borrow. Like if you know that you're linked to somebody and you're going to go to a particular place and you're going to need a hammer, but you don't have room in your carry-on bag, but somebody else has it, you can say, okay, when the time comes, I'm going to borrow your whatever. I'm going to borrow some of your tools, and we make this soul agreement that we're going to exchange it when the time comes. Yeah. Group dynamics are different. It's all different, but it's much more free. But it requires an exchange, an ability to share, a willingness to share. You cannot have hoarders in a group system. You can't have somebody who's not willing to share. In a group system, it's just completely different. Hang on, I'm going to talk about this first. So if I'm packing my skill set for a carbon-based body, carbon-based existence, and I plan my life path. I know basically what I'm going to need. So I'm going to take my past life history, whatever karmic baggage I'm going to take whatever skill set I need left over from that. So we kind of step back in through our energy bodies. Like we lose our physical bodies, but when we step back in, we take the bulk of our energetic bodies, our unresolved shit. We kind of come back in through a membrane, and we get a lot of our energy body back. We also carry in, most of us look the same, very similar, incarnation to incarnation. Even though you have different biological parents, there's really a substantial physical resemblance that remains if you follow somebody through incarnation. It's amazing how they always look the same. You can always tell who's who. That's really pretty cool the way that happens. At any rate, so you'll say, well, I'm going to need this amount of stuff. And then once you have what you absolutely have to take in, you have the option of pulling in anything else that you think you might need. Let's say that these are, it's spaghetti. It's more like fiber optics. I'm using this to say that these are strands of something that's like fiber optics. And let's say you're, and it's also, it's kind of a weird analogy. I said this the last time I used the spaghetti, because you carry them in, like not all strands are necessarily created equal. There are some that are going to be way stronger, like the upgraded. If you say, well, here's the previous carbon-based archetypes that you could choose from if you were making yourself. And then when we introduce a new template, you're basically offered new ingredients to choose from. And I've used the example of, like, at one point there was a first chocolate chip cookie. And there was a point that chocolate chip cookies, nobody ever heard of it. And somebody invented this recipe, and we've all heard that Toll House cookie story where they, introduced at the Toll House, they introduced chocolate chip cookies and it became really famous. And now at this point, basically you could say that the chocolate chip cookie is a template. And at this point, at that point, the idea catches on to all these people. And even though there was an original recipe that was exact, at this point, basically everybody has taken it and made it their own. They've tweaked it, they've adjusted it, they have their own variation. And that's basically what you want to happen. So when a new template is introduced, every person is free to choose from it and use some of those ingredients toward themselves if they want to. So, but you can't do it until you're ready. So if you're somebody who is very traditional, spiritually immature, you got a ways to go with the old template before they're going to let you choose something from the new one. But when you reach the point where you mostly have all of your old lessons learned, like you're an old hat, you know the way it works, and you're ready for something new, they're going to allow you, when you come into a body, they're going to allow you to choose, and you could say something like, well, I'm going to take this much from the, let's say the Joan of Arc template was the new one at the time. You could say, yeah, I'm going to choose some from this. And then you'll come in with whatever of those qualities. You're going to, usually you'll choose a specific area to focus on. Like, I want to, I want to focus on bravery in this lifetime, or I want to focus on, I don't know, spirituality or something. You would choose something that was remarkable about that particular icon. You'd say, I'm going to emulate this and this and this, and I'm going to adopt this portion of it. And then when you adopt that portion of it, you can move to something else. You can adjust it every time you come in with different frequencies. So then, after a while, like now, the Joan of Arc template, that whole pattern, just like chocolate chip cookies, at this point, it's been adopted. It's so common now, thank goodness. That's exactly what we wanted to have happen. My guides told me one time that during that lifetime, it was my job to come down and turn on the garden hose and just leave it running in order for it to be saturate the earth with that frequency, so that enough people would have picked it up by this time, when it's all about feminine equality. I mean, like, no nonsense, like, we got to have it to get through this gateway where it's all about equality of everything. But there was a time when that was like unheard of. So if this template represents the Joan template, and it's being retired, it's not that I kind of misspoke last time when I said it's being retired. It's not that you can no longer take use aspects of it, but the group dynamic formula, the template is still, we're going to use that, but the conflict portion of it, it was basically totally drained, like like this whole group construct idea. We're keeping the mechanism by which it happened, but we're totally getting rid of all conflict. So from this point forward, we're going to have the same group dynamic, but we're it's now going to be a matter of equality, as opposed, it's like the equality at this point is non-negotiable, and it's being led by the feminine. We're reestablishing equality, period. Yeah. So what happens when a new template is introduced? If this is the individual template, and basically, let's say, oh, hang on a minute. Where's my other diagram? Here it is. Yeah. If this is the original template, and for a while, everybody was just using circles of different colors, and that was the extent of your amount of choosing. There was a point where you could choose from circles or stars. You know, they give you something else to choose from. Then, when you've done all of your upgrading and you've moved your entire personal assortment to something that is more advanced, and you have this down to a science, and now you're ready to learn something else, they will introduce a new template, and this represents basically, let's just say it's this was advanced for the third dimension, but it was still the third dimension, and it was smaller, and it was all basically one thing. It was all basically third dimensional, and it was all uniformly stars. You could only have so much differentiation, so much variety. And then you move to this one, which is holographic. It's much larger, it's expanded, and you've got all of these interdimensional aspects, like you can actually, this one's not even just flat. Everything on here, even though it's third dimensional, it's three-dimensional, but let's just say it's a greater degree of dimension. You're stepping up in dimension. And now, whoever comes in with this amount of space can choose from their old pattern, but they can say, you know, that's pretty cool. Where'd you get that? I'm going to choose something that's this background. I'm going to step up the amount that I can carry because I'm moving from my two-dimensional biological DNA. I get 10 more strands to fill in from. My range can increase. I can bring in a lot more of my own past life skill sets. I know that so many of us are just, our past life memories have returned, a lot of them. And we know that we already have these skills. Like, I just want my music back, man. I was John Stanley. I was the best organ player in the world at that time. And I used to orchestrate all kinds of things. And I want my music back. And I know that for this lifetime, I was told that I was doing this job and I can't do my music for the duration. But the new children who are coming back in are not going to have this problem. They're coming back in with their memories intact, with their DNA whole. They're going to retain their telepathy. They're going to retain all of they're not going to shut down the way we did. That's winning the battle. The new children are coming. It requires a completely different kind of educational system. You cannot educate these children the same way. The entire society is going to have to change because they're coming in with this kind of DNA structure. They've got minimally, the least of them, the least developed are coming in with 12 established. And many of them will be coming in with their full range, all their capacity, or they're just going to have all of their skill sets. They're going to arrive knowing what they came to do, and they're not going to have any more tolerance, or, you know, but like basically every last one of them is a prodigy, but there are no more prodigies because they simply arrive in young bodies with adult skill sets. So it's going to take an educational system that can accommodate that, to say that, yeah, kid, you're the leader. You show me what you know how to do. And these are the children who are going to bring in the technologies, who are going to basically show us the way it's supposed to be done, if we've forgotten. And our job as leaders and parents, educators to a degree, are basically just to present the space, hold the space, and give them the resources. Because we know what my guides had told me in 2013 when I was trying to buy Anna Divine. They said, all you have to do with this school is offer everything that you know you needed as a child that you never got, and you'll be mobbed. And I knew that. I mean, I remember that sentence. They said, all you have to do is offer everything, offer to the kids everything that you know you needed, that you never got any of it. I was a good student in school, but I had a terrible time with everything. I just had a terrible time with everything. I couldn't stand the classrooms. I couldn't stand, you weren't allowed to leave. There were no animals. There was no woods. I couldn't take it. It was easier for me to work in extremely large chunks of information that were with a targeted focus, where I'm thinking of one thing at a time, but I'm looking at it comprehensively in a way that makes sense to me. Like I was self-driven, but I don't think I'm alone, but I was really self-driven. Wasn't antagonistic to what other people were teaching, but it just seemed pointless and stupid. Really primitive. But there's just a better way to do everything, and I know what it is, and I'm also here to do it. So just back off. Just back off. I already know how to read. And I'll let you know when I know how to do. When I need your help, I'll ask for it. That kind of thing. I was extremely motivated, extremely self-driven. And my education started every day when I got home from school. I was a weird child. I didn't have a lot of friends, but my God, I was scholastic. I read, I slept with my books. I went for 6-hour hikes. I went for wolverine hunts. I had this thing where I would just memorize taxonomic nomenclature and poetry and whole librettos. When I was 11, I would go home and I'm like, no, I got to memorize my libretto. I got learned La Boheme and I had no friends. I will memorize La Boheme on my way to find a wolverine with my field guide. Please walk away. Oh, but I could talk to the squirrels, and the trees knew what I meant. But I'm not alone. I could talk to ghosts too, and I still can. And then I'd get to school and be like, God, you guys are idiots. I just didn't understand. What the hell? Why are we doing this? This makes no sense. And then they'd say something like I'd get the right answer. And then they'd say, but you got it the wrong way. Show your work. I'm like, well, why? I did the math problem, but I got it right. Because I felt the answer and I knew what it was. And if I showed you my work, you wouldn't be able to follow it. I can't do it the way you're telling me to do it. It's painful. It's painfully slow. I'm squawky now. Anyway, this is a new dimensional template. So you're going to be able to come in and and choose something that from this array, and it's much more fun. Also, I put googly eyes on here because the new template, not only is it expanded, but it's also conscious. It's hyper conscious because you come in with a recognition that everything is actually aware of everything else, unless you're one of the stupid pedestrian people who aren't aware of anything. We're not going to have them for much longer, because there is actually going to be this massive leap forward. And all we're waiting for, really, is the 100th monkey tipping point to tip over all the other dumb monkeys that we've all been waiting for them to learn how to wash their damn sweet potato. It's not rocket science. Wash the sand off your sweet potato. So easy, a monkey could do it. Anyway, there's that. So there are templates. So I was going to talk about group dynamics. Hang on a minute. How are we doing on time? 7:14. And how long has this been going on? Oh, so I'm only 2 hours in. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Muggles. So the way group templates work. But this is sexy as all get out. You can't tell me it's not. This is great. So one of the reasons we go through, this is a little bit of a recap, but one of the reasons we go through the 11 gateway is because in the 11 gateway, you learn the reason the whole twin flame grid, the whole twin flame idea, that whole concept, which means one thing at the third dimension. Where's my other thing? Hang on a minute. Oh, and then I got to get back to this. Wait a minute. I'm not going to use this diagram. Hang on. Is it this one? No, I'll use this one. Like the whole twin flame idea, let's say this is the third dimension, and you're an individual down here. It's very compressed, and it comes down to a point. Like the point is on the timeline where you experience everything in linear singular form, and you are a linear singular person, and you go moment to moment to moment, and one thing happens at a time. Only one. Your choices are reduced to one. And this is where you live. It's a sorry, dense state. And right around, at some point, there's the concept of twin flames, which means something to a third dimensional mentality. It's not that truth is wrong, but there is an expanded version of that truth that you get more comprehension about it as you go up. Things get lighter and lighter and lighter, and more and more is revealed. Basically, that's the way it goes. More is revealed. So there are more aspects about the twin flame dynamic. So the way that twin flames were presented, if you look, in the Bible or historically, Elizabeth Clare Prophet and I think it was Mark Prophet, that kind of coined the phrase. But twin flame ideas have been around, and twin flames have been around. I've been a twin flame before. It's always kind of it's a intense. We'll say intense. It's a very intense job to come down in. It's very intense. The real ones. I don't mean that in a condescending. Well, really, it sounds condescending when I say it, but it's not. I don't really mean that. There are. It's a job that is energetically behemoth and really strong and really intense, and it's toward a purpose. So you've got like real twin flames, and they would be, so for example, they would be ones that came down with like 24. Because it's designed to carry an energetic weight that is going to be like a dominant tuning fork that, which also looks like an 11. joined by the one. Actually, a tuning fork is a very good way to put it. Designed to have an opposite, and also where it's designed to hold and radiate a, is it a beacon? How do I, what's the word for that? It's a radiance. It's a transmission that sends out a signal that says, my opposite is also me. We did this specifically to create a grid of really powerful beings that are radiating this frequency, and anybody who is actually on a twin flame journey, as well as people who have, if you're not an actual twin flame, but you've had the twin flame echo experience, you know how energetically intense that whole dynamic is, even if you saw like a false twin. And I'm going to show you why a false twin, there's a way that happens. You can count your blessings. If you thought that was uncomfortable, you can count your blessings. I do sound really condescending. So one of the ways that the group dynamic works, so if there's a twin flame pair and they go in a group dynamic, like this is the way, I'll just say this is the way ours has worked. But since we're in a structure that deals with very large groups, it applies to other groups and other twins as well. So if, for example, yeah, I'm going to use this one. If I'm this one and this is my twin, and we're opposite on the group, and we came down in a group structure, and let's say, for the sake of argument, he's taking how he's. Remember, I said that I'm not explaining this well. The problem that I'm having is that so many of the topics are intertwined, and if you start to it kind of refers to other things as I go along, so it becomes really difficult to talk about. If my twin is basically one side of this group, like let's say for example, I'm on, my twin takes half and I take half. But each one of these points has two beings on it. So I know that in this actual construct, this is a two-dimensional version of a three-dimensional model. I'm on about half the points. My twin is on the other half of the points. On each point, there's one other person. Yes, exactly. Always across the fire from one another. There's a point that he's balancing one side, I'm balancing the other, and at some point we're going to balance with one another. And when that has, so there's a rotation of energy is the point. So one of the ways that the twin flame dynamic, well, the twin flame, false twin flame, like people can get confused as to, they can feel or sense their energy with their twin's energy in other people. One of the ways that this happens is that, let's say that there's a soul recognition, like let's say that I am really, really good at sensing this oppositional energy. It's oppositional, but it doesn't matter. It's basically me. We also did this thing too, where for the purposes of flipping the planet this incarnation, I'm in a feminine body, but I'm carrying his masculine aspect inside. We switched it. He's in a physically male body, but he's carrying the feminine aspect. We switched it for that purpose so that we'd be able to do the job. But one of the things that happens is that because this energy rotates, remember, everybody who goes on to one of these points, you bring yourself to the table, and everything that you bring in as a soul, all of your qualities, when you go into any kind of a group dynamic, all of your qualities, your entire template, everything from this that you picked up, you made yourself, you created yourself with everything that you were going to need, and then you joined with other people, and usually there's a lot of pre-planning. So if you're going to go and do a group task, Joan of Arc lifetime totally being best example, we know what that group has, just like twin flames have an individual mission. Groups go down, they're grouped by task. You're grouped by task. And since there's still only so much, particularly in the past there was really, our bodies were so limited, you could only bring in 12, there's only so much space. What we did for the purposes of the Joan of Arc lifetime was we came in, we created a structure. It was the energetic construct that I keep talking about, where there's one triangle on the top, there's one triangle on the bottom, and we came in with a sequence of trading. Like if you're trying our job was to mobilize everything. So it's kind of like if you want to build a motor. And I don't know what, that's probably a bad example because I can't think of any motor components because I don't know how to build a motor. But it's something like that. Like if you're going to take this component, I'm going to take this component. Everyone has a particular job so that when you land, everyone is going to, there's like a higher dimension. If the Joan of Arc lifetime took place in the Middle Ages, in the third dimension, but a lot of the work that went on happened from 4, and then there was more work that happened. We put together the construct in 6, and then it was overseen by a council in 12, the 12th dimension. But the point being is that we trade skill sets, like everybody does their particular job. And the reason in that lifetime anyway, the reason we had to be overseen so much was because when it's so dense, you lose sight of one another. When you lose your telepathic ability often. You can still go inward and find. You never lose your connection with your higher self unless you decide to, or unless you forget, or you go into density to such a degree that you go into separation. I never lost my contact with my guides in that life, but it becomes when you're in that degree of density, it's like swimming through tar. You lose your bearings. You can't find other people. You might be next to somebody that was, your family member, and you might not know them. Things like that. It's just very easy to lose sight. You lose your memories, and then you have to rediscover it, but then you can't remember why you're here, and now you're like 40 years older, and it's too late, and you're going to die and be born again and try again. And this is why humanity doesn't develop, because there's just no freaking evolution. It's lack of light. It's too much density. So we're gradually getting out of this issue. It's gradually getting better. But the way the group dynamic works is that you bring whatever you have to the table and you add it to this. It turns into soup. You add whatever you brought in with you. And there's an energetic construct by which, so when we built this thing, it was designed to increase empathy. We were trying to escalate the development of humanity by giving them the packing as much experience of being others, other viewpoints, get as much rotation as possible out of a single lifetime. So, I just discussed in other live streams how we harness the energy, and despite what the disclosure community will tell you about, they take your energy and they harness your energy and they use it, not everything is malevolent. And given the enormity of our task, where else are you going to put it? You have to take some of this energy. If something is really packed and really, really condensed, and you have to get movement out of it, but it's still really packed, the only thing you can do, you can't cram. The whole point, the whole reason it wasn't moving was because it's already too dense. You can't pack anything further in the bag. You're going to have to take some of it out, hold it. So we held it in a container. We held it in this huge energetic construct, and then we start this churning process. We start this churning process by which the energy is going to rotate all of these different beings. We made these alliances with beings that we don't necessarily have anything in common with, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the experience of peaceful coexistence. So basically you take beings who can do it. And everybody wants to get their people out. You know, I may not want to be responsible for that population over there. They're really not mine, but I want to get my population out, and those people need to let my people go. So I'm going to make a partnership with you, Pharaoh, and we're going to try and turn this stuff over so that your people develop some fucking empathy and stop taking my people slaves, and etc. You get the point. And my people actually stand up for themselves and say, no, that's a terrible idea. I refuse. There are different lessons that need to be learned by all of these populations. So we put beings in place. So if my twin is up here and he kind of represents the privileged, but half of me is in that too. So that's one of the, like when I said that in my own personal life, I've gone from, my whole thing is to merge these two extremes. That's my goal is to merge the two extremes. From a position of having lived, you know, homeless and, being part of, the opposite of that. I've incarnated many lifetimes in, there's a certain lineage that has a specialty task of getting people populations to rise to their own empowerment. Populations that need to fight more have needed to fight a lot more for their rights. Stand up and claim your sovereignty. That's the population that no matter what, that's a specialty skill set that I've taken in the dynamic. Versus my twin, who typically he's incarnated over and over again in positions of being the privileged authority figure, like he's been a king multiple times. And what he does is go into the superstructure that says you may not change these rules, you may not change, you are to subjugate the masses, you are supposed to command this privilege. And what he does is go into these positions and he bends the rules toward benevolence toward the masses, so that he goes into where, with responsible use of power. So we're trying to flip it. And because we've exchanged portions of the interior space, I'm doing, it's like a safeguard, He's going to treat this portion of him that's in my body responsibly. It's a way of caring for the other and enforcing that particular model. That's the whole reason we came, to enforce this model. Enforce is probably the wrong word, but we also mean it. It's like that. Like we're here to instill it. We're going to imprint it. We're going to have it be so by doing X, Y, Z. So what we did, we take two twins with 48 strands of DNA. So it's extremely strong, unusually strong, energetic voltage. And we can carry it, and then we swapped portions. And if he's on this side and I'm on the other side, or I'm on whatever, I'm down here and he's up here, or something like that. I can't tell so far anyway. Energetically, there's also a rotation of energy. So what can happen because you've also got other beings that are on the other points. And one of the things that happens, so if you're a twin, or if you're having a twin flame experience, and let's say that you're somebody who has had a false twin, the way that happens is that you probably, I'm not saying this in every case, but probably the way this happens is that, let's say this person is, let's say you're somebody who's in this jurisdiction, you're in this populace mostly. Most of your energy comes from here. And you have a deep recognition for the energy that's up here. When this energy is moving, let's say you meet somebody who's in this group and you recognize red when you see it. You recognize your opposite. You recognize that energy, and you sense it when you come across somebody who's in the orange group, and you sense it correctly because there is red there. That's the way, like this is, for example, the when I was Joan of Arc, the way I identified the Dauphin in that famous scene where Joan of Arc first meets the Dauphin. When she finally gets a meeting with him, and I remember that. And there were two people that I was confused with. First of all, he wasn't my twin flame. His father was. But what I was but his father had died at that point. So what we did in that lifetime is we had to go to a plan B. So we went with the son instead of the father, because the father had died basically of density. Density is extremely difficult. So he had lived longer than, he had lived a good long time for the Middle Ages, but we had hopes that he would live longer. At any rate, I never even met him when I was Joan of Arc, but he was my twin flame. The original plan was that I was going to come down and basically work for him. I like to think that he would not, that he would have saved me from, had I been captured, and wouldn't have let me be burned alive. But the rest is history. We know what happened. But the reason that I was still very, very easily able to identify the Dauphin, Charles, his son, was because I recognized that energetic signature. So because it was, and the person that I couldn't tell two people apart initially, like I had paused at his cousin too. And it was because that energetic signature, like in higher dimensions, we all recognize one another by energetic signatures. Names really don't mean anything, and faces are kind of interchangeable. Like I might forget your face, definitely forget your name. No matter who you are, but I remember your energetic signature. So I was able to very easily identify the blood relatives of my twin in that lifetime. And then one of them had light brighter than the other, and that was the actual prince. So if you have found a false twin and you think that's your twin flame and you're having all these experiences and they catalyze you and you have the telepathic, you have the telepathic experience, and he ripped my heart out and it was really intense, and, all of these twin flame, 17 signs that you've met your twin flame, and it's like, yes, that happened. Yes, that happened. Oh my God, he was in my dreams too, and I had this premonition. And as soon as I met him, I had all of these things. I do sound really, really condescending, but basically, you can have a twin flame echo experience. The experience is entirely valid. Take it, milk it. If it turns out that wasn't actually your twin, just count your freaking blessings. Because the real one, if you thought that one was a nightmare, that's the amount that of the genuine experience that you had. And if it really went to this level, it would be even more intense, even take even longer, and be even worse until it got better. So the interesting thing about twin flame experiences is, you know how they always say that, like in a normal relationship, you've got like the honeymoon phase when things are really good, and then it's like kind of a slow decline. It's all downhill from there. You got to work to keep the love alive. In a twin flame dynamic, it is really, really, really super saturated with intensity and bludgeon. It reaches this period of indescribable discomfort and twisted torture and separation, usually, depending on who you talk to. It's almost like you pack as much, because you have to but before twin flames come together, you have to be absolutely purified. Absolutely, because why? You can probably guess. It's because the sheer amount of voltage, the sheer amount of light, because you're coming together when you're twin flames, you're coming together toward a purpose, and the purpose is service toward the earth. You're coming down and you're landing with such authority. It's to change, it's to bring heaven to earth. It's to recognize yourself in the other with such authority, and there's such a massive amount of light energy comes in. There cannot be a trace of resistance there. You'll get spontaneous combustion if there is. If you have 48 and 48 strands of DNA, if you're one of those, that's one of the reasons, like, I know they've been checking me. Like, do you have, where do you carry density, or where do you carry any resistance? Because when the energy comes in, it's really going to come in. It's going to light up the entire planet. There's a network. We're all over the planet. We've got all the twin flame echoes. To whatever degree you can carry it, you're going to carry it when it comes in. So there can be no resistance on the lower network. There can be no resistance in the upper network. When these two things come together, it's going to light up everything. It's going to lift up the entire planet. So you need to make sure that all of your garbage, all of your crap, all of your issues are out of the way. And that's why twin flame separation, as much as we complain about it, myself included, that's why it takes so long. It takes a long time to get rid of your darkest crap. Somebody just told me recently, and I think it's probably true. I hadn't even really thought of it, but somebody told me recently it takes 5 times the amount of work to get rid of a dark emotion than it takes to, like, mobilize anything normal. But it's like if it's dark and like negativity, takes 5 times the amount of energy to transmute it than it does to change something that's like more moderate, more normal. Not normal, but like to mobilize anything else. Approximately 5 times the energetic investment to change a negative emotion. I was really thinking about that. I think it's probably true. Anyway, so in a group dynamic, the nice thing about it is that you get instant telepathy, not only with just your twin. Also, when we go through the twin flame gateway, the reason that we wanted to get as many, in designing this whole strategy, we wanted to get as many people to have that experience of telepathic ability. Get used to it with one person. Even if this person isn't your actual twin, you need to get used to having the experience of telepathy, very heightened, Kundalini awakening, which is very often mistaken for sexual energy. It's so similar but we need as many people as possible to have that experience so that their Kundalini will begin to rise, so that their awakening will really be jump-started, so that they can start awakening other people around them. There's a strategy, there's a sequence. And if you can, and you need to be able to do it, you have to start somewhere. It would be very, very overwhelming if you went from somebody who believed themselves to be isolated, who had no telepathy. You can't just jump to that in a group experience. You have to look, kind of get your sea legs a little bit by having that experience with one person, and then you'll go to usually a small group of people before you start to go up through and you get if you start down here, the triangle's going up, and you're getting a larger and larger group of people to reach transparency with. Anyway, that's the way it works. Where was I going with this? Borrowing other people's skill sets. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Hang on a minute. I can't read my own writing. Cutting ties means so one of the things that happened that I hope we're fixing it, and there it is. One of the things that happened, this is weird. So if you're in a group dynamic, thank you. If you're in a group dynamic and so basically whatever you put into the group, or whatever, I should say it this way, whatever we put into the group during the twin flame, during the Joan of Arc lifetime, everybody put their stuff into the center, their skill set, their combined skill set, put it into the center, and then we started a rotation so that everyone, if these all represent various populations, there was a rotation of the soup on the inside, so that almost like a current that goes around, so that whatever this person does, however this person responds, or whatever their experience is, it's going to go to this side, it's going to go to this portion, it's going to go to this portion. There's going to be a version that is experienced by every other color. Hard to explain this thing. There's going to be a version of an experience, or a version of a skill set, and this person is going to utilize it toward their purpose. This person is going to utilize it, take from it what they will get from it. This person, same thing. But there's going to be whatever the reaction is, or whatever. I need an example. I'm trying to think of a good example. Each population is going to have their own version of a given experience. There you go. Not really. Nope. They're going to take a skill set and apply it their own way, because you can't. I had used the example of like another person who was in the construct directly opposite for me in one regard, and she's very physically based, and she uses in one of my other live streams, I had talked about her cooking, and I said that one time I heard her talk about the way she's a very intuitive cook, and she had talked about that cooking is all about layering flavors, and it was like all layers of transparency. She does, and she's very physically oriented. So what she's doing is taking one of the shared skill sets, and she's applying it to, it would go this way. she was, if she's read, because she's physically based, she applies it toward a physical and material purpose. And so she's cooking with that skill set. When I take that skill set, I utilize my knowledge of harmonics, and I will do things usually with sound, or I will make energy into forms basically before they hit physicality. But it's the same skill set, but we will apply it to different things. When that particular thing comes around to the other places, be it a circumstance or any given skill set, you can take that and run with it and apply it to whatever you're going to use it for. Yeah, I guess I will just leave that there. At any rate, so one of the things that happened in the Joan construct is that because it was half dark and half light, one of the things that happened in this lifetime, we came back into it, is that some people decided to basically go dark and shut off, they shut it off. So for example, if this is me, if that's me, I have access to everything that belongs to me. Like if I'm the green triangle, let's say, even though I'm really half of them, let's say I'm cool colors, or no, let's say, because I'm usually warm colors. So let's say I'm warm colors. But I would have access to everything that belongs to me, plus everything that's that I can see that is shared. I have access to that, but I can't because of the dynamics of the group, and also I just wouldn't, because I won't. I won't trespass boundaries if somebody doesn't want me there. So if somebody says, I'm shutting off, I'm preventing you from seeing what I'm doing, and I'm not going to share anything of mine with you, then all of a sudden I'm handicapped. I'm greatly handicapped. Also, and I won't go into another person's terrain, even though I do know that they frequently come into mine. Like, because the side that I'm on, we're naturally transparent. And if I go, even though I have the ability to put down walls, but I don't. Also because, yeah, I'm not explaining this well at all. There are certain things that other people will do, but I know that I won't do because of my mission. I know that my own particular job is to go first, and I initiate the imprint that brings in the new code. So there are certain things that just on principle, it's not just on principle, it's because that's my job. My job is to not do any of I'm not going to go touch any of the third dimensional stuff. My energy is so generative, and it reproduces so quickly that if I were to touch down, it would be like setting something on fire. Like, it's just going to catch on really, really quick. And I need to make sure that doesn't happen. It would be creating further bondage, because my own particular energy stream is so generative, and it turns over so quickly that if I go into a third dimensional system, when I say that I've been unplugged from everything third dimensional, that's toward a purpose. It's not like, oh, dang, I can't do that again. No, it's that if I were to, first of all, my energetic signature will not fit. It won't fit. It's not supposed to. It would be damaging if I were to cram myself into a third dimensional system. Not only would it be extremely uncomfortable, it would also, basically, remember I said it's like endorsing something. I don't want to endorse anything that's going to create further a further increase in any institution that is designed to contain. Because I've worked very, very long and hard to get people out of slavery, so I'm definitely not going to go back in and touch the walls of the jail if I know